what Mr. Magashule said, in fact, is a mouthful. And what he didn't say is even more important compared to what he said. So if you look at relations between him and former President Jacob Zuma, and then, of course, Kalni House, their relationship has been strong for quite a long time. But lately, we've seen them that relationship falling apart, which doesn't necessarily mean that they've become political enemies, but the relationship is no longer as strong as it used to be. So that tells you that there might be something that is simmering behind the scenes. And as he said, the time will tell as to what this will turn out to be come 2024. In his own words, he said that 2024 will be a totally different election compared to all others that have taken place since 1994. And in fact, he's absolutely right. If you look at the turn of events, you look at the fallout between individuals and amongst different political parties, and then you look at the state of the ANC, a number of problems that have arisen, but also looking at the fact that opposition parties are also in disarray. So then it will be very interesting to see what's going to happen next year. But as for Magashule, indeed, we'll watch this space. But from where I'm standing, I can say that there is something that is simmering.
You know, I'm just thinking of the phrase that history has taught us that empires are rarely defeated, they implode. And there has been a lot of this talk about the ANC itself imploding, that you've seen breakaway parties, will continue to see breakaway parties. But I do also want to understand on what basis do those who move away from the ANC later align? Because I'm thinking about what you're saying, that we have seen relations cool between Magashule, Kalni House and former President Thabo Mbeki. But what exactly does it mean? They don't have to be political enemies, but can they work together, and to what end?
You know, it's a bit, so question is very critical because politicians will give you a particular picture, and then when they meet behind closed doors, it's a different story altogether. So it might appear as though these three individuals are no longer having strong ties as they used to, but then the reality of the matter is they might still be negotiating behind closed doors. So that is the nature of politics. But when it comes to the ANC as an organization, the ANC has been imploding from within for a very long time. But the reason why the ANC has survived is not because the ANC is perfect. No political party is perfect. The ANC, therefore, cannot be insulated, in this case, from that reality. But the reality of the matter is that opposition parties have failed to use the ANC's mistakes until the ANC had regroup. This time around, I think the damage is too much. But unfortunately, opposition parties also cannot agree on almost anything. You might recall that there was a time while Thabo Mbeki was in office when they wanted to collude and in fact up against the ANC. They didn't win. And the reason is simple. They were concerned about positions. If they were to come together as opposition parties and then form a strong bloc against the ANC, the question was who was going to be the president of that collective. They couldn't agree on that. And I'm not expecting them to agree this time around. So which means that even though it's clear that the ANC support has been declining, that of the IFA, EFF and Freedom Front Plus has been increasing, but none of them will increase its support base enough to unseat the ANC. The only possibility is for the ANC to be unseated by a coalition government, which I've said on several occasions that South Africa is not ready for that because our politicians have no clue as to how to manage a coalition.
And I mean, we saw at the elective Congress in December how we were really at the edge of our seats, those who were on the outside watching the outcome of that, and they came out of that preaching unity. But we know that the best way to defeat your enemy is to recruit from within the ranks. So you can have unity while you still have those splinters looking like they coalesce. We had the RET forces. We now have Carl Niehaus, who said there's Areta, and if Mr. Magashule is to be believed, there is strong support for him to form his own opposition parties, even though he says, I am a card-carrying member of the ANC as we speak.
Yes, indeed. So what happened at Nasrec was very interesting on a number of fronts. But it shouldn't surprise us, because that is what politicians do. Whenever any political party holds a Congress, it will give you the impression that even though they went to the Congress divided, or at least people supporting different individuals, once they decided as a collective as to who their leaders will be, they will tell you when they call the media briefing that we've put aside all our differences and we are all singing from the same hymn book. You and I know that that is a lie. But in fact, in politics, that is the way to go. You cannot go out there and tell people that there are divisions amongst us, we are not agreeing on this and that, because then you will have ceased to be a politician. If you are a politician, you must always paint a positive picture and be optimistic that things will change for the better, even though you know behind the scenes that in fact things are not working well. So what happened with the ANC, therefore, is not an exception. But then the reality is that, in this case, the reality that we are faced with is that after that conference, that is Nazareth conference, we were told that the RT faction had been weakened, and people were saying that the NEC and the NWC is in full support of the president, and therefore the president is going to be taking firm positions and so on and so forth. I differed with that idea. I said, in fact, it's a disaster if the president enjoys too much support from the NEC and enjoys too much support from the NWC, because it means that there is no one who's going to guide him whenever he goes astray. Instead, he's going to have cheerleaders. And that is dangerous, because it means that they will be supporting the president even if he's letting the organization down.
And this
so
is what
it will never be good.
Prof, before we wrap up, I want to understand then what will belie the support whoever becomes not only leader of the ANC's, suggesting, if some are to believe, that possible President Ramaphosa may not finish his term. I know it's conjecture at that point, but what underpins who is worthy of support? South Africans are saying we're tired of like a service delivery, we want clean governance. And you spoke about coalition government. That would also rally around saying get the corrupt ANC out of power. But who are we to believe if patronage is still the end game that a lot of people are chasing?
Unfortunately, so patronage is part of us and it's not going to disappear anytime soon. And this notion that if you remove the ANC, then all South Africa's problems will be over is a fallacy. It will never happen. In fact, we are better off with the ANC than with any other political party, because at the moment, as I said earlier, there is no single party that is in a position to unseat the ANC. And that is because politics is a numbers game. And in this case, the official opposition, the DA, does not have footprints across all 9 provinces, and therefore it cannot replace the ANC. The EFF is still a party in the making. It will not replace the ANC. Forget about Freedom Front Plus. Talk about the IFP. It doesn't have national footprint. So as things stand at the moment, South Africans are in fact not spoiled for choice. On paper, it looks like we have too many political parties, but in reality, there are very few, because if you look at the manifestos of those political parties, what they stand for, there is very few in terms of policy deviation. They all look at the ANC and then they say, we are going to improve on what the ANC has done, but they're not providing anything fresh. Therefore, the ANC will still have higher numbers, even though there might not be enough for it to reach the 50+1 threshold, but it will still have the high numbers. Unfortunately, we don't have a constitution that tells, a constitution and also an electoral act which governs coalition politics, which would say a party that has the highest number of votes should be the one given an opportunity to form a government. That is why you will find the smaller parties ganging up against the ANC, and then the result is what you saw at Nelson Mandela Bay, what you saw in Gauteng, that is Johannesburg, Tshwane and Ekurhuleni, where you have coalitions that are unstable simply because they don't have the numbers that will enable them to unseat the ANC and then provide something different. So South Africans are in trouble. You have a problem with the ANC, but then you don't have a clear alternative as to who you'd vote for if you don't have the ANC. That is the reality.